All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us on another edition of ExtremeHealthRadio.com. We're really happy that you're going to join us today. This is a pleasure for us to do these shows for you. So thanks for tuning in. My name is Justin, and we are currently broadcasting worldwide from Southern California. And we're currently doing shows about 3 days a week on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Last I checked, we were in 71 countries, which is just amazing. It's just crazy what you can do on the internet. You can throw up a website and you're in 71 countries. It's crazy. So thank you for joining us. If you'd like to follow us on Facebook, feel free. It's facebook.com/extremehealthradio. And thank you to Mr. Mike Adams of naturalnewsradio.com for having us on his network. Today is a beautiful Wednesday, November 14th, 2012, and this is episode number 35. So you could find the show at extremehealthradio.com/35. And you'll find the transcription, show notes, and any reference materials that Mr. David Wolfe mentions on the show. And if you have any questions for me, you can send them to Justin at extremehealthradio.com or call our voicemail line, which is 949-391-7363, and I will play your message to our guest on the air. And once again, this show is brought to you by the Vitamix. This blender is amazing. You have to get one. They are so great. If you buy it through us, you'll get free shipping, and we'll get a little commission. You can check it out at extremehealthradio.com/Vitamix. Before I introduce Mr. Avocado Noni Cacao, as his name is, David Wolfe, I'd like to just talk about our upcoming show schedule. We've got tons of great guests this week. We've got Dr. Lita Lee on Friday. She does a lot of work with enzyme therapy and hormones and balancing hormones. And then on Monday, we've got Liana Warner-Gray, who started a blog called The Earth Diet, and she overcame cancer herself, which is an amazing story naturally. So check that show out. And then in a week from today, we've got Dr. William Wong talking about hormones and exercise and fitness and nutrition and all that kind of good stuff. But today we've got David Wolfe. Really excited about having him on. He is a raw food expert, a superfood extraordinaire, knows a ton about health and nutrition. He runs thebestdayever.com, and he also runs the Fruit Tree Planting Foundation. He does a ton of stuff. He has a book called Eating for Beauty, The Sun Food Diet Success System, Naked Chocolate, Superfoods, and a new one on Saga, which has just came out. So thank you so much, David, for joining us today. We really appreciate that.
Right on. Great to be on the show and super excited about what we're going to talk about.
Oh, excellent. So now you are up in Canada, is that right?
That's right.
Canada. And so I think according to your Facebook, you just caught a bunch of reishi last night or a couple days ago.
Yeah, yesterday we had a great run on reishi. We hit about, I must have found like about a dozen of them, which is a really good find on 3 different trees in 3 different areas of the forest. So it was a big reishi day yesterday.
Wow. Now, did you find Saga as well or just the reishi?
I've been on a tear with Saga recently. This is so weird. It's like the great herbs of the world. You've probably heard this about ginseng. I mean, it's in the lore about ginseng. The ginseng will reveal itself to you when you're in the right state of consciousness. It could be right under your nose, but you don't see it for years. And that's what's been happening to me with Saga. Just around my house, I found a dozen Sagas that I didn't even know were there, like right around my house. And it's like, how could I have missed this all these years? It's just incredible.
Wow. And so how long does it normally take you to find a good Saga mushroom?
Oh, it could be a good run in the forest. I mean, it depends on how skilled you are finding these things, but generally, somebody could go out in the forest all day and not find one.
Wow. And you found a bunch of these on your own property?
I found a dozen of them, that I didn't even know were there on my own property, which is just really bizarre. It's just one of those things, again, that when you're in the right state of consciousness, it's just there. It's in front of you, but you don't see it most of the time because you're just not tuned in or, whatever. It's just you're thinking about other stuff or whatever. Right.
Wow. So maybe your body really needed some Saga.
Yeah, well, I left them all. I didn't even pick them. I picked one. I found one on a dead tree, which was... It was really, really like an ideal circumstance to actually, what I'm looking for actually is the Saga fruiting body, when the Saga goes into reproductive phase, and that's a very, very, very rare phenomenon. I mean, it's rarely ever been photographed. There's only one good picture I've ever seen of Saga in its fruiting phase, when it's in its reproductive phase, and I thought I had one the other day. I mean, it was on a dead tree. It looked like it was the right thing, but unfortunately didn't have the fruiting bodies. But I did pick the chagas there because once the tree is dead, the chaga starts to die off.
Wow. And so do you take the chaga and then do you kind of crush it up and dry it out and then make teas out of it? Or do you make tinctures as well? Or what kind of things do you do with the chaga?
Yeah, everything. I mean, like the ones the one I just picked, I just put it above my wood-burning stove, so it's just dried out now. I put that up there with the rishis, so I got the rishis and chagas all drying out, and then those will last for years, literally. I can put them in a bowl in my kitchen, and they'll just sit there for years without nothing will attack them, nothing can get a hold of them. And then when I'm ready to put them into teas, sometimes I'll crush the chaga to a powder and throw it in tea, or break it up into thumb-sized chunks, throw it into a tea, or take the reishi, break it up by hand, throw that into a tea. And that's kind of what I'm drinking right now, actually, is a chaga reishi tea with a bunch of other medicinal mushrooms that I picked from the forest.
Oh, my gosh. You're just living in paradise.
It's always paradise. That's the thing we forgot. It's like we always think paradise is somewhere else, right. And it's not. It's right immediately around us. And, I live way out in the bush, as they call it here, way out in the forest. And people are like, there's no town near you. There's nothing. What do you do? And it's like, geez, it's paradise out here. And it's paradise everywhere when you're aware of what's available.
Wow, that's so great. So you also have a spring on your property too, I think, right?
Yeah, we have it's actually a real spring that feeds both my house and my neighbor. I've got the coolest neighbor ever. I'm so happy. I couldn't even tell. It's unbelievable. He's like my best friend.
Oh, wow.
It's amazing. It's like when you're a kid and, you meet the kids next door and you turn out they become your best friends. It's like that. It's just so awesome. So him and I have got this whole water thing, nice situation. Beautiful water coming out of the spring, going into both our homes.
Wow. And so you just piped it all the way in from the spring and right into your taps and faucets and everything?
That's right. We just pipe it in, and it's done through spiral pipes. Basically, when I came to this property, it was all, an old system that was put in the 60s, and every single piece of that original system broke. Every single piece of it. So we had to replace it, and we had to do it in the right way, Victor Schauberger style, with real materials. So we used spiral pipes, crystals in the line. I mean, it's I got the most amazing water system in my house ever. It's incredible.
Wow, that sounds so great. So now, you just finished your book on chaga, is that right?
It came out about 6 weeks ago. About 6 weeks ago.
Wow. And so what are some of the things that are in that book that maybe some people don't know?
Well, one of the things about chaga and the research coming out of Russia is that chaga, you need both aspects of it. You need the water-soluble fraction of the chaga. So, for example, if you just eat chaga, which you can do, you don't absorb a lot of it. So you miss a lot of the medicine, and a lot of it goes right through you. So the reason why you make a tea is that you get a higher fraction of absorption. You get more out of it. So it passes through, you absorb a lot more. But there's another part of it, which is the alcohol or fat-soluble fraction of chaga, that's also very, very important because it's anti-tumor, antiviral, it's anti-metastatic. And the Russian research indicates that chaga is very effective at stopping tumors and metastasis and also viruses when you consume the alcohol-soluble fraction. And so you need both, and that's the thing that I want to put out there, because a lot of people are now turned on to making chaga tea. Then they throw the chaga out when they're done making tea. That is an absolute faux pas. First of all, the material is too valuable to ever throw away. You never throw it away. You dry it out and you throw it into alcohol once you've done the tea.
Wow. Don't some people combine those and make a dual extraction too?
Yeah, then you could. That's exactly right. That's what a dual extraction is. For those of you who are listening and wondering, like, you saw a dual extraction on some herbal tincture, and you're like, what the heck does that mean? It means that both the water-soluble and alcohol-soluble fraction are in the tincture.
Wow. And so what are the two best mushrooms, do you think? Do you think chaga and reishi are the top two medicinal mushrooms, or? Yeah,
it's chaga's king, reishi's queen.
Okay.
Those are the top two. My friend Ron Teagarden is a very famous herbalist in Los Angeles. He finally got in to see the Shaolin medical director at the Shaolin monastery in China. And, the Shaolin monks gave us Kung Fu, they gave us Zen Buddhism, and they basically gave us the core of Chinese medicine and the Chinese herbs. So, that's a pretty amazing contribution to the planet. And so he finally goes to see the medical director there, walks into his office expecting to see like a Chinese emporium of herbs and all kinds of stuff. completely zen. There's nothing in there except a chair, a table, and a shelf. And on the shelf are just two things, a reishi and a Saga mushroom. Now that, I don't know about you, but that, when he told me that, I was like, oh man, we're on the right track. That's an unbelievable coincidence.
Wow. So you can also combine those two teas together, because does Saga, I've never tried Saga. I do a lot of reishi, but I've heard Saga has a little bit of a vanilla flavor. Is that right?
Yeah, Saga's wild reishi and wild Saga don't have a mushroom taste. That's the thing that's so incredible about these two mushrooms. They're not mushroomy. So, like, for example, the wild reishi, when you make a tea out of it, it tastes like hot butter. That's the flavor.
Wow.
And Saga is like, has a little bit of a vanilla note in it. It's really amazing. It's got almost like an essence of wood kind of flavor to it, but tasty.
That's great.
Yeah, delicious.
Wow.
I'm going to drink some right now, actually, now that we're talking about it.
It's sitting right in front of you, so you.
Yeah, I got a nice wood-burning stove, piping hot tea of Saga and reishi with the other medicinal mushrooms right in my hand right now.
Oh, nice. So now, recently I was reading on your Facebook page, for all those who are listening, I highly encourage people to follow David Wolfe. He's got so much great information he puts out on Facebook, so make sure to follow him. And I was reading on there the other day that you had quite a synchronistic experience with Daniel Vitalis, being... I believe you were stuck in New York during the Hurricane Sandy thing. Is that right?
Oh, this is a wild story, and it just took even a wilder turn. Basically what happened was I was in Green Bay, Wisconsin, doing an event for a chiropractor friend of mine, Dr. Flynn, up there. And then I flew. Then the next morning I was supposed to fly to Reykjavik, Iceland. Well, when I got to Chicago to catch my flight, there was all kinds of mechanical problems, all kinds of weird stuff. They ended up routing me through Dulles Airport, which is Washington, D.C., and try to get the flight to Reykjavik by 8 p.m. Well, as it turned out, time ran out on me. I ended up in Dulles Airport my flight was gone, and I lost my seat on that flight, and my luggage was lost, and all of a sudden I'm like out on the street going, okay, I got to go find a hotel or something. And at that moment I get a text from Daniel Vitalis, and he says, "You wouldn't happen to be stuck in Washington, D.C., would you?" I mean, it's completely the most random thing ever. And I was like, well, as a matter of fact, I am. And I said, where are you? Are you in D.C.? He says, yeah, we're at the Hilton Hotel. At that very moment, the Hilton van drives up, and I just jumped in. I said to the guy in the Hilton van, I'm like, do you have rooms available at the Hilton? He said, yeah. So I figured, okay, I'll just go over there. I'll run into Vitalis and that crew. And so I went over there, and I get to the hotel. And so within, like, literally 5 minutes of him texting me, I'm there in their room.
Wow.
It was so bizarre, like the flip around. Like, I'm sitting there on the street going, oh, man, this is the worst news ever. Now, I didn't even know about the hurricane coming. I didn't know any of this stuff. All of a sudden, they're like, do you know there's a hurricane coming, and we got to get out of here tomorrow? And so then I start realizing that they're at a health show at this Hilton Hotel. Ooh. I didn't even realize that. And all my friends are there, and I'm like, what? This is crazy. So what we did is we went down there that night, broke down their booth, packed it all up so they could pack out the next day, because obviously Hurricane Sandy was coming. And then I took his speaking spot for that day from 3:30 to 4:30, and then I was going to try to zip over to the airport at 5 when Iceland Air opened so I could get on the flight and get out of there.
Oh my goodness.
Anyway, so they took off, and then I did his talk for him at that time. I got to the airport at 5:15, got the last seat on the flight. When I got on the flight, I realized that they first of all, they didn't charge me for missing the flight. Second of all, they put me in first class.
Oh my gosh.
It was amazing. But then I found out something crazy. Daniel, we had a phone conversation the other day. He said, hey, do you know what happened on the ride home? I was like, no. There was a guy, they were right behind a guy on a motorcycle who wiped out on the freeway going 65 miles an hour at exactly the time when I took Daniel Vitalis' speaking spot. So it was at 4:08 p.m. That's when I was on the stage, from 3:30 to 4:30 doing his speaking spot at that health show at the Hilton. And, they had driven away to try to beat Hurricane Sandy home to Maine, and they saw a guy wipe out on a motorcycle, and they were the first there. They called, 911. They got the state troopers there, and basically Daniel Vitalis probably saved that guy's life.
Whoa.
I'm sure he did. And so that's the whole story right there.
Wow. Isn't that amazing how
crazy?
It's like we're just puzzle pieces, and gosh, that's so amazing that everyone was just moved around to be in the right spot at the right time.
yeah, it's a wild story, and just the whole incident. I mean, when Daniel told me the whole incident, I was like, my God, that is just unbelievable. How fortunate that guy was to actually have them right there immediately, because he wouldn't have made it. I mean, he would not have made it. From the story that Daniel told me, it was just unbelievably gruesome.
Wow. And you have like synchronistic experiences like that all day long, every day, don't you?
I've had some pretty crazy experiences, like synchronistic experiences that are so bizarre that I started writing them down years ago just to remember them. But it's kind of like, I think what happened was is this year, I turned 42 this year, and I think what happened was I reread the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy series, because remember 42 is the answer to the universe, but then they forgot what the question was.
Oh, right.
So I thought, I better read that whole series, because I'd only read the first book. But when I was a real young kid, maybe 12 years old, and I read the first book, there was an idea that was implanted into my life that has guided my life, and it's the idea of randomness, doing the random thing, and getting, that whole idea of hypersynchronicity. And, when I reread it this summer, I was like, God, that's where this all comes from. And it's really guided my life, is like the whole idea of like hypersynchronicity, randomness, bizarre coincidences. And that to me is really where the juice is of life. Wow.
So great. We have to take a short break for about a minute, and we'll be right back. We're with David Wolfe. Check out his website, davidwolfe.com, thebestdayever.com, and thelongevitywarehouse.com. Make sure to follow him on Facebook and all that good stuff. And we'll be right back after this break. I do a lot of weightlifting and lifting heavy weights at the gym, and I love it. But there's also another side to working out, which actually helps you increase the energy in your body. As you know, in our culture, just about everything is a stress to our body. It depletes us of life force energy and our energy in general, whether it's, coworkers or getting to work or dealing with difficult family members, things like that. All of these things cause stress and energy depletion in our body. And something like Qigong is a really great way to help cultivate your inner energy, and it's been practiced by people in the East for thousands of years. It's put together by Tristan Truscott and Peter Ragnar. You can find it at extremehealthradio.com/Qigong, which is Qigong, and it's called Good Morning, Good Evening Qigong. And I highly recommend getting this product. It comes as a physical product to your house with really great DVDs and workbooks on how to do this ancient art of cultivating your inner energy and building that core energy of your body. And it's been practiced, like I said, for thousands of years. So I highly, highly recommend checking it out. If nothing else, just go to extremehealthradio.com/Qigong, Qigong, and get on their mailing list, because they'll send you lots of free information as well. So check out Peter Ragnar. He looks amazing for how old he is. He's been doing this for like 60 years or something. It's really an amazing product. So check it out, extremehealthradio.com/Qigong. All right, we are with David Wolfe from davidwolfe.com and thebestdayever.com. Make sure to check out those websites. And David, I have a few questions. We got a bunch of emails from people knowing that you're going to be on. Do you mind if we kind of power through some of these?
Sure. Let's go for it.
Excellent. Okay, cool. We've got Laura. She says she's 71 years old and has a mild form of osteopenia and wants to know about some of these herbs that she's taking for her bones, and then some things that she could do to strengthen her bones. She's taking, she says she's doing the herbal infusions of nettle root, comfrey leaf, linden flower, oat straw, and red clover. Good.
That's excellent. I'd also recommend eating alfalfa. Alfalfa powder is really a good silica source, and it's very high in alkaline minerals like calcium and magnesium. I'm not a big believer in taking calcium for bone density. I am a big believer in taking silica and magnesium-rich herbs and foods, and horsetail, nettle, oat straw, alfalfa, hemp leaf also. Now, if you're in the U.S., you can't get hemp leaf, but if you're in Canada, it's legal. You can get it as an herb, as a tea. You can also find it in Europe, everywhere. And that's probably, when I've looked, a friend of mine is a research scientist down in Toronto, and he has sent me the data of 120 hemp leaf samples that he had analyzed in his lab, and he has a literally, it's about a $250,000 piece of equipment. He has 5 of those in this lab.
Wow.
And he sent me the research, and basically hemp leaf is one of the best natural sources of silica, magnesium, and calcium there is. I don't think there's anything better in those three than a hemp leaf. So I want to interject that in there, because we've got to get this whole hemp nonsense, whatever, the illegality of the whole thing, just overturned and get rid of it and just throw it in the ash bin of history, because it's so preposterous.
Yeah, I agree. Have you heard of a website called DixieX.com? What's his name? Dr. Mark Circus mentioned that they're selling this Rick Simpson-style hemp oil legally out of Colorado, and it's called DixieX.com. I'm not sure if you've heard of that.
I haven't heard of that product, but I am aware of the cannabis and skin cancer connection, which is the oil of cannabis, when put on skin cancer, usually resolves it in about 3 weeks, and they definitely don't want you to know that. They don't want that to be known. I've seen it, and it works, and that's the thing that's crazy, is it's like a normal melanoma, like a typical age-related melanoma. Cannabis oil topically is the best thing that's out there that we know of.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so would you recommend any exercises or anything for the osteoporosis, osteopenia?
Yeah, well, definitely. Vitamin D is a huge factor. There's no question about it.
Okay.
By the way, medicinal mushrooms are good sources of vitamin D2. There's a lot of controversy about vitamin D2 and D3. Which is better? Does D2 really work? And the answer is they both work. Vitamin D2 works and D3 works. So even though there's controversy on the internet, the science shows that both work, and what's in mushrooms is vitamin D2. So that's a way to get more. Definitely weight-bearing exercise. I'm a big believer in very, very fast, very, very hard, exhausting training.
Okay.
So, for example, you do your whole workout in 5 minutes, but you go to the point of total and complete exhaustion where you're literally gassing. And that research on that type of exercise form has been shown to increase testosterone and increase progesterone. So in a man, testosterone, and a woman, progesterone, which then also helps you mineralize better, because the higher your progesterone as a woman, the better you mineralize. Same with a man. Higher your testosterone, the better you mineralize.
Oh, wow. Excellent. Okay. And I would maybe throw in rebounding. I've heard a lot of good things about rebounding as well.
Absolutely. I was just with the crew in Europe that does the Bellicon Rebounder, which is an incredible rebounder. My God, what a machine.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't use metal springs. It uses like flexi ropes. So it's very soft and fun, and it's just great to play with.
Yeah, that's the one that we promote as well. We love that Bellicon. All right, we got John from Napa. What does he say? I'm 28 years old. I've been following a high raw diet for many years. Every year in the fall, I seem to get seborrheic, I don't know how you pronounce that, dermatitis around my face. What causes this, and what are some treatments for it? Because I hate having flaky dandruff and itchy skin. Okay,
so is it on the face, or is it actually on the scalp?
He says he mentions dandruff, and then he mentions the seborrheic dermatitis on the face.
Okay, so it could be like a form of rosacea. That's possible. It could be like a weak fungus. A lot of people have like tinea infections, and it's in their skin. It could be on their scalp. It can be on their face. Sometimes you see white splotches on people's skin. People usually, like white people who live in the tropics, who aren't really adapted to the tropics, can get that, like little white splotches, and that's like a tinea infection. And these things are basically irritating. They're indicating that we need to strengthen our immune system. They're indicating that we need to get more vitamin D into our system, and they're indicating that we need more long-chain omega-3 fatty acids. Those are generally what's implicated with these types of conditions. If it's in fact rosacea, number one thing is garlic. Because to me, I'm pretty sure, I'm very sure actually, that rosacea is herpes family, definitely. That it's related to herpes, it's a herpes virus, and it kind of comes and goes, usually stress-related, and with the best thing against herpes is garlic. There's other herbs that are really good. Saga alcohol tincture is actually very good.
Okay.
What else is very good? Chaparral, very good. But garlic is on the money, so something worth trying.
Okay, great. And chaparral is a good cancer-fighting herb, is that right? As well?
That's right. I recently got really back into chaparral because years ago I used to recommend it a lot, and it's not a tonic herb for everybody, because some people have weak kidneys and liver, can't do chaparral. Just they can't do it. But if you're strong, if you're vigorous, you have good vitality, chaparral can be a really good herb for you, especially if you live in the desert Southwest because it's a desert plant.
Oh, great. Okay, cool. All right, we'll just moving right along, kind of power through these. Let's see, Denny from Onarga, Illinois. Every few years I get gout really bad. My diet never changes. I do eat some meat, but also drink smoothies and fresh vegetable juice as well. I'm 68 years old and would love a solution to my gout.
Okay, one thing for sure, gout, for those of you who don't know, usually affects the knob of your big toe knuckle.
Okay.
That's usually where you get it the worst. And one thing, the reason why you get it there is because of gravity. Gravity settles all the acids and all the crystals to the lowest part of your body, which is usually your feet, and then to some degree your calf area of your musculature of your lower leg.
Oh, wow.
So what you want to do is get upside down. That helps a lot, just to get the blood, to get the heavy materials that are settling in the feet, get them kind of coming back into your system. I'd really recommend investigating DMSO topically.
Okay.
And you need to read a book on it before you use it, because it is a chemical solvent. For example, you don't put DMSO on your toe and then suddenly put your sock on, because the wet DMSO can take the dyes that are in the sock and drive them into your skin.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So you need to know what you're doing with DMSO, but DMSO will work.
Oh, wow. Okay. Now, how long would they want to do the inversion on that?
At least 5 minutes a day, and 5 minutes is good. So you can do that when you lay down to bed at night. Just get your legs elevated. If you have a wall next to your bed, for example, get your legs elevated, get your feet up high so you can get that reverse flow, so you can get some of those acid crystals coming back down so your body can dissolve them, get rid of them, excrete them. Otherwise, it all gets stuck down there. Another thing, too, is just yoga and opening up the blood flow in your feet. I'm, obviously a big fan of being barefoot.
Mm-hmm.
It's very, very good to be barefoot to open up the chi, the energy flows that come through the earth, through into you. And that's another thing that's going on with gout, is that we've gummed up our whole electrical system with the rubber-soled shoe and the plastic shoe. And you just need to get back on the earth, open up that energy flow with the earth again with bare feet.
Oh, great. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm sitting next to your longevity mouse pad right now, so
right on.
Good
yeah.
stuff. All right, let's see. We've got Christy from Roxburgh, Queensland, Australia. I'm 33 years old and was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis a year ago. I don't want to go on any of the medications for obvious reasons. I've been going to the Whitaker Clinic and want some more things I can do to help speed the healing process. What causes this, and what are some of your thoughts about how to get rid of it?
Okay, great. Well, it's a viral condition. There's no question about that. That's been basically determined, that rheumatoid is a viral condition. I think it has some fungal components as well. Generally, what I've seen with people who have nail fungus and toenail fungus is that the fungus roots into the joint. And with a rheumatoid, viruses and that fungal component root into the joint, and the joint is basically non-vascularized. So it's hard for your immune system to actually get in there and clean things up. So what I recommend is you actually have to build your immune system up so you have an arsenal. And this is one of the reasons why over and over and over again, I'll hit this thing, reishi, Saga, every major herb there is, on a regular basis as a food, not just when you're sick. That's the teaching of tonic herbalism, is that you don't take herbs just when you're sick. You take them as a food. I'm drinking reishi, Saga, maitake, whatever 15 other mushrooms I have from the forest, tea right now as just food. That's what I eat, because that's feeding my immune system so I never become susceptible to any of this kind of stuff like rheumatoid. But once you're already been hit by it, you need to really build your immune system up naturally with the natural herbs. And I like the medicinal mushrooms for that. I like the alcohol-soluble fractions of the medicinal mushrooms for that, because they are antiviral specifically. And then I also like some of the other great tonic herbs that are joint-specific, like nettles. Nettles are great, amazing, and do have antiviral components, and also have a tendency to gravitate towards the joints. I like horsetail, because horsetail is rich in silica, and one of the reasons why we have susceptibility to rheumatoid, why one person would get it, another person wouldn't, is because one person's joints are made of poorer quality material. And so the viruses go, oh, that's an easy target, and just boom, they just burrow into the joint. Wow. Whereas another person has better quality material. They for example, grew up on a higher silica diet or whatever, just genetically have stronger joints. and they're not as susceptible.
Okay, wow. So they're looking for the weakest link, the viruses and things like that.
Yeah, and the joints are a big. I'm telling you, this is a big and important conversation. You've got to be on the right nutrition now so that later you don't get joint conditions. Because joint conditions are age-related for the most part. Not in every case. Like rheumatoid is not generally age-related. But if you don't have that right nutrition, then you're susceptible, and you have to be on it. You really have to be aware.
Right. Yeah, I would probably recommend your Longevity Now program because I have that, and that thing is just amazing. It deals with all of this bad calcium and joint issues, right?
That's right. Yeah. In fact, I'm rewriting that right now. I've been working on that today. I'm going to put the 3rd edition out, and I'm just basically like honing it down and also adding some sections into that. But there's a very big part of this, by the way. When somebody becomes susceptible to rheumatoid or any kind of joint condition, usually something has disabled their immune system. And that could be a big hormone change. Sometimes that does it. So when somebody has a condition like they've already got full-blown rheumatoid, I'd start looking into progesterone cream to try to just get a little bit of an angle, get a little bit of a progesterone dominance going on versus an estrogen dominance to aid the immune system. And progesterone cream is safer than food, so it's not something you could OD on. It's just you use a little dime-sized amount, 14 days out of the month, on the sympathetic part of your nervous system, like in the crook of your elbow and the crook behind your knee or something like that.
Okay.
It always comes with instructions, but you should look into it.
Okay, excellent. Okay, we've got Stephanie from São Paulo, Brazil. I've got a fibroid the size of a small lemon, and I've heard from Dr. Oz that surgery for these things can most of the time be unnecessary. What can you recommend to get rid of it and shrink it before I have children because I don't want this during pregnancy? Okay,
we're seeing more and more fibroids, and my feeling is, and I go back to Dr. John Lee's research, it's estrogen dominance. Okay. And the reason why we have problems with estrogen dominance is because it's a natural part of living. It's also the unnatural estrogens we're exposed to. For example, BPA is a estrogen mimicker or xenoestrogen. It's in plastics. All kinds of plastics are estrogen mimickers or xenoestrogens. And we're exposed to it through pesticides. DDT is a xenoestrogen. Its metabolite DDE is also a xenoestrogen, and the list just goes on and on and on. So we're under an estrogen pressure from environmental toxicity. Now, that can cause all different kinds of problems in different people. Depends on the person, their own chemical makeup, the level of the exposure, but it can lead to fibroids. So one of the things you want to do is get progesterone dominant if you're a woman, and for a man, obviously, you want to always be testosterone dominant.
Okay.
And there's different ways of doing that. Very intense burst energy type of exercise and fitness helps a lot to build up your progesterone. Another thing that helps a lot is progesterone cream. And by the way, progesterone cream generally for women, but men can use a little bit of it because a man will flip it over and turn it into testosterone. You don't use a lot, and you don't use it too often, but a man can actually use it to benefit. There is a benefit there. So anyway, coming back to the fibroids, then you've got to start looking at your whole protocols, and you've got to have the enzymes necessary to break down the fibrous tissue. And I think you mentioned you're going to have Dr. Wong on.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And he always talks about metabolic enzymes for breaking down fibrin, fibroid tissue. And I think that'd be a really good idea. Here's the dosage level that's needed. Not 1 or 10 a day, but more like 50 to 100 enzymes a day.
Oh my gosh, really?
Yeah, that dosage. Yeah, that's what.
Wow.
When you're dealing with natural stuff, we're not on the take 2 and call me in the morning. We're on take 2,000. Email me next month.
Okay, that's great. So some of the other estrogen-causing things in our cultures are, like you said, plastics. Are there foods like seeds and things like that can be high in estrogens, or are those kind of more minimal?
Well, those aren't minimal. Like soy is very high in estrogens, and it's totally a crapshoot on whether somebody's going to convert those into toxic estrogens or actually be able to deal with it metabolically. It's unknown. It's like a big experiment that's going on. So I'd recommend no soy, no high estrogenic foods that are kind of on the borderline of being like, well, we don't really know, because phytoestrogens in pomegranate appear to be good types of estrogens. As far as I can tell, yeah, I'd say no problem with those. But when you're dealing with things like soy, you're talking about estrogenic compounds that we don't know what the long-term picture of it is, and it's probably harmful for most people, when you're dealing with like 2 servings of soy or more per week. Wow. That's the dosage.
Yeah, there's so much going on with soy these days, and it's just such a crazy thing how, I have a friend of mine that was recommended that their baby take soy to supplement their breast milk, and, there's so many problems with soy, isn't there?
Yeah, it's basically dangerous. And you don't need, first of all, soy is toxic. You cannot eat soy raw. It's poisonous. Most legumes are poisonous. You only can make it into food by cooking it. And even then, traditionally, they would cook it, then feed it to bacteria, turning it into a miso, which is telling you that they're actually trying to detoxify it to turn it into a food. That's really what that means. We don't even need food like that anymore. We've got a whole cornucopia of goodies that we don't even need soy. You have all this other stuff that's much safer. And that's the kind of thinking that we need to have, is we need to start looking at every choice being safer. Now, before I let this thing go on fibroids and estrogen dominance, there's another thing I want to mention, and that's beet juice and goji berries. Beets in general, beetroot juice, for those Australians who are listening and British people, they always say beetroot.
Yeah.
You need to have those things in high amounts more today than ever, because goji berries and beetroot are very high in betaine or glycine, basically. They're methylated glycine. And it's a deficiency of methyl groups that is the, I think, underlying culprit of what's leading to estrogen dominance, because we're getting saturated with bad estrogen. Our liver tries to detoxify it with methyl groups. We don't have enough. We run out of gas. All of a sudden, we start accumulating all kinds of bad estrogens. Next thing you know, we have fibroids, breast cancer, ovarian cysts, all kinds of insomnia, acne that never goes away. It just goes on. I mean, all these things are estrogen dominant related. By the way, arthritis, also estrogen dominant related.
Wow.
And you've got to methylate properly in order to get the bad estrogen out of your liver. And the best way to do that is beetroot juice and goji berries.
Wow. And just do as much of the beet as you can possibly handle, right? Because it's pretty powerful food, isn't it?
Yeah, I like the juice. I think that's the best way to get it. Just drink a beetroot juice a day. This is more needed now than ever before due to the chemical pressure that's on us.
Okay, excellent. All right, well, we got to take a quick break. We are with David Wolfe, and we've got 3 more questions to go from listeners. One is about someone is on Zocor for their heart and cholesterol. Another one is about thyroid health, and the other one is about baby and their supplement for breast milk. So we will be right back. We're with David Wolfe. Check out his website and follow him on Facebook, davidwolfe.com, and we'll be right back. Hey there, thanks for listening to the interview so far. I wanted to tell you quickly about a product called the Longevity Now program. It's put together by David Wolfe, who, if you haven't heard, is one of the most prolific authors out there. He's a world's leading authority on raw food nutrition and just an amazing guy. So we've been following his work for many, many years, and he's doing a lot of groundbreaking work in the area of calcium and how to dissolve these bad calcium deposits in our body. And that's what's responsible for fibrosis and calcium buildup, and essentially that's what takes down all mammals. Getting rid of this bad calcium in your body is imperative if you want to live a long, healthy, disease-free life. So the Longevity Now conference, you can either attend it or you could purchase the DVDs and the workbooks online, and I've done both, and they're extremely powerful. They're very motivating, and it helps you follow a protocol that will help you prevent and reverse diseases. It's incredible. So I would highly recommend you check it out. You can learn more at extremehealthradio.com/longevity. And please visit our sponsors, as this is the way that we're helping to maintain ourselves and to get to a level of sustainability. So thank you so much for listening, and let's get back to this interview. All right, we are with David Wolfe from davidwolfe.com and thebestdayever.com and the Longevity Now Conference.com, I believe it is. And we've got a couple more questions we want to power through. And so, David, this person says, Wendy from Texas, I'm such a huge fan. I know you can't give medical advice, but I wanted to ask about statin drugs. I'm currently on Zocor to lower my cholesterol, and my heart doctor just about freaked out when I told him I stopped taking the medication. What would you recommend if this were you?
Well, let's just talk about building good heart health and what we know about it. High dosages of coenzyme Q10, and I'm not talking about 150 milligrams. I'm talking about working your way up to 1,000 milligrams or more. like real dosages. They don't want you to know that, by the way. They don't want you to know the real dosage of coenzyme Q10 is like even higher than that. It's like 2,000 milligrams.
Wow.
That's when you really like get into the zone. Another really big one, hawthorn berry, huge. Cacao, chocolate. Chocolate is the number one food for your heart and cardiovascular system, period, end of story. That's what the research shows. If the more chocolate you eat, the less likely you're going to die of a heart attack. It's actually one of only 2 foods known to lower mortality. And the other one is olive oil. So chocolate and olive oil for cardiovascular health that's it. Now, let's talk about Zocor and just statins and blood thinner medication. Mm-hmm. It's based on the cholesterol theory, which is a really bad theory. I mean, 50% of people who die of a heart attack and stroke have normal cholesterol.
Wow.
So it's a terrible predictor of actually even heart problems. A much better predictor is elevated homocysteine, which is kind of a bad drunk amino acid, which, by the way, is a non-methylated amino acid. That's what homocysteine is, meaning when you start running out of methyl groups because of all the chemical pressure on your body, then all of a sudden your chance of heart attack and stroke goes way up.
Now, what is a methyl group?
A methyl group is a CH3. It's carbon and 3 hydrogens. It's a sticky material. It's the beginning of carbohydrate formation.
Okay.
For example, when you have sweet water, like if you go to a spring and you drink sweet water, it basically has methyl groups in it. It's the very beginning of carbohydrate formation. Now, as it builds, like let's say it starts becoming sap in a tree, then like in a birch tree, it's going to be a 5-carbon sugar. So it's going to be just slightly beyond the methyl group, and you're going to start getting into xylose or xylitol.
Okay.
And then as the plant begins to develop sugars, like in maple, it'll develop actually into a 6-carbon sugar, where that's where we get maple syrup from.
Wow.
So it's the very beginning of carbohydrate formation, and it's a sticky type of material, and it's a stickiness. And what your body has to do is it has to stick that material, the carbon with 3 hydrogens, onto the toxin in order to move it into a detoxification pathway.
Wow.
To actually get rid of it.
Okay, and the cholesterol issue too, I believe that I heard William Wong say one time that if your cholesterol gets down to a certain level, you can't even make hormones. Is that right?
Yeah, that's a whole other problem, is that the cholesterol-lowering medication has a side effect that's crazy, which is it's lowering your cholesterol, which you need to form hormones. It's the basis of all hormones. You can't form progesterone unless you have cholesterol. You can't form testosterone unless you have cholesterol. It's the beginning of that whole thing. So I believe it's causing people to have low hormone levels, which is basically causing estrogen dominance to be worse, because you don't want to lower testosterone in a man or lower progesterone in a woman. You've got to keep those elevated at all times and keep those to predominate over estrogens in order to be healthy.
Wow. And then you have low hormones, then all of a sudden you realize you need Viagra, and then you're on another medication, right?
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah, but then, you end up on their whole list of medications. Now, the reason why we're on drugs, even though we're on a war on drugs, but we're on all these pharmaceutical medications, is just because we have bad herbal knowledge. We weren't educated about herbalism. We don't know, for example, like if you need a blood thinner for real, tonka bean. Tonka bean is where they made Coumadin from. If you have tonka beans around, they actually start forming Coumadin crystals on them.
Wow.
We never even heard of this, and they don't want you to hear of it, because then you could medicate yourself if that's what you needed. In most cases, that's not what you need, but if you had really high fats in your blood where it was a real danger, you could use tonka bean, use a half a tonka bean, throw it in a blended drink, and drink that, and boom, your blood's thinned out immediately.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, the cholesterol thing is such a spooky thing, because once you're on a medication, then you're sort of under the jurisdiction, if you want to call it that, of a doctor, and then then getting off of it becomes a health issue that you basically have to take responsibility for. And what a wild thing, because then your doctor's trying to scare you, and like this lady says, the doctor freaked out when I told him I stopped taking the medication.
Here's my take on the whole thing. I grew up in a family of medical doctors. I grew up in the whole environment. I went with my dad on house calls from the earliest memories I have. So that's my background. Here's my take on the whole thing. If you can avoid it, stay away from doctors. If you can avoid it, stay away from dentists. That's my take. all the damage done to my teeth been done by dentists, not by anything. Like I have a cracked tooth in the back of my mouth. Every single dentist who's looked at it over the last 20 years has told me it's a time bomb, it's this, it's that, it's the other thing, it's horrible, it's the worst thing ever. And you know what? I did nothing about it, and it's perfectly fine. It's better now than it's been in 20 years. And it's telling me something. It's informing me about what their whole trip is. The doctors, I mean, as soon as you get into that whole parade, you're going to get railroaded down a whole pathway, and you may not make it, actually. You may not make it because they're on a whole different... First of all, their herbalism is horrible. It's the worst ever. Mm-hmm. They're drug salesmen. They don't have any idea what creates health. They're totally trained to look at disease. The paradigm's other than excellent. It's
kind of like a spiral, and once you get in, you're on the outer edges, and then they just keep, circling you around, and pretty soon you're on 10 different medications, which I'm not sure what the average American is on, but I mean, it's some crazy amount of, medications are on every day.
Yeah, and I want to just address that. Whenever you pay for a medication, or your insurance company pays for medication, you are putting money in the hands of companies and beings who are going to use that money to corrode the institutions of freedom.
Yeah.
Take a good think about that. Whenever you put money into their hands, no matter what you think, I've got to have this thing to save my life, whatever your story is, it's a Faustian bargain. Mm-hmm. You're going to take a short-term gain for a long-term tragedy, and they will use that money to corrode the institutions of freedom, and that's exactly what they've done.
Wow. Yeah, because we vote with how we spend our money, right?
That's right.
Wow. Okay, so we got a couple more here just to power through. I've got, let's see, how can I improve my thyroid health? I'm currently on a small amount of thyroid medication, speaking of medications, and want to get off if I can. How can I make this transition? I'm a male, 70 years old, William from Durban, South Africa.
Okay, great. Well, one of the things you can do to improve your thyroid health is get grounded. That means get on the earth, barefoot, swim in bodies of water that are, part of the earth. The ocean, for example, grounds you immediately. Your thyroid is an electrical reservoir. It's a very high negative charge. It's also heavily vascularized, so it attracts to itself most of the very positively charged toxins in our environment. Now, basically, your thyroid hormone, and in a man, testosterone, and DHEA, and vitamin D3 are anti-estrogen.
Okay.
So once your testosterone goes down, if your vitamin D3 is down and your DHEA is down, then that puts a huge amount of pressure on your thyroid to keep up. And so that's when people start getting into, and then let's say we load in the toxicity on top of that, so the thyroid's malfunctioning because, we're under toxic pressure. That's when we start getting these thyroid problems. And the way they prescribe thyroid medication is other than excellent. They don't do the appropriate research on the person. They don't do the appropriate testing on the person. Then it's really, they just prescribe it just straight away. And of course, the person has to stay on that medication the rest of their life, which is exactly what every drug company wants. Mm-hmm. Right? There's no cure. You have to stay on it for the rest of your life. That's their bottom line. They love that.
They love it. So
getting grounded helps.
Okay.
The thyroid medications are actually iodine supplements, and that's another thing people need to be aware of. T3 means 3 iodines. So when you're taking a T3, like a Synthroid, you're actually taking an iodine supplement. So that begs the question of, wait, maybe before I got on this medication, I should have been taking iodine to see if my body can manufacture the T3 with just a little extra iodine in my system, which should be tried, first before you get on the medication. Wow. And then another thing on top of that is that if you're on the Synthroid, which is a synthetic, and it causes a lot of long-term problems, like the buildup of reverse T3 and other side effects, you probably want to get on the desiccated animal thyroid. And this is an issue, like if you're a vegetarian, this is an area where it's a problem, because suddenly then you have to become aware that you're probably better off with the desiccated animal thyroid, which comes from an animal. And it's a kind of a moral quandary, but it's just kind of where we're at.
Wow. And so as far as the iodine supplements, is the nascent kind of the best thing still going, or are there improvements out there for that? I like nascent iodine. There's better ones out there, but not as widely distributed, and nascent is a really good one that's widely available, and I use it personally. Okay. Yeah, I've heard people doing crazy things like eating the thyroid of like a grass-fed animal, things like that, and
That's what I mean by desiccated thyroid. Yeah,
okay.
That's actually better for you than the Synthroid, the synthetic. And you can lower your dosage, too, which is also good, but it's not vegetarian.
Yeah, that's definitely not vegan or vegetarian, is it? Okay, so we've got a final question about breast milk. She says the doctor wants her to drink soy milk to supplement her breast milk. And so the baby, I guess, had a reaction to the soy milk, not surprising. So what kinds of things that, could this person do to give the baby everything it needs if the doctor is saying that they need to supplement their breast milk? If that's even true.
Well, you definitely, it depends on the age of the child. I mean, if the child's like 2 years old and you just want to go to the easiest thing available, probably like a rice milk is really a nice way to go because it's so innocuous. That's why billions of people on the earth eat rice. Rice is middle of the road. It's not estrogenic. It's very edible, actually. And that's probably the direction I'd go if you wanted a kind of a quick fix, although there's not a whole lot of nutrition in rice milk. If you wanted to really start to look at, okay, how do we get this child some interesting nutrition, and let's say the child's like 1 or 2 years old, I'd look at medicinal mushroom mycelium. And that's just a powder, and you can just blend that into anything. You can blend that into a rice milk, you can blend that into an almond milk. And it's immunological food for the baby. It's also good food for their joints and the development of their nervous system. And so that would be, to me, number one food for a baby. In fact, that's what my opinion is. That's the number one food for a baby, is actually medicinal mushroom mycelium powder.
What kind of mushroom powder would that be?
Like reishi mushroom powder.
Okay. And could you blend that into like a banana or an avocado or something?
Yeah, absolutely. You can eat it straight. It tastes good. But you can blend it into with avocado. You can blend it in with banana. You can make a creamy smoothie out of it. It's delicious. It's basically a malt. It's a malt flavor. Like we grew up, when I was a kid, there was still like Rexall drugs where you can get a malt kind of smoothie. Remember those days?
I remember, yeah.
Yeah, and the malt was basically roasted barley. And essentially, it's a similar flavor. That's what the mycelium tastes like. So it's really easy to eat and fun to eat. And we've got kids all over the world eating that now. And I know kids who've been raised on that now. From the time that they were that was like their first food.
Wow.
That's really cool. It's amazing. And it's immunological, so it helps them with the development of their immune system.
Wow. Okay, we got to take a short break and just cut out for Natural News Radio. Thank you to Mike Adams for having us on his station. But David, we can keep going for a few more minutes. I just needed to throw that in there. So what are some other foods that you would start introducing to a baby when they're ready to start eating, more solid foods?
Oh, I like banana and avocado. I think those are great starter foods for kids. I like fruits. If the kid's still breastfeeding, it's fun to get them fruits. But it's also, I think, grass powders need to be talked about a lot more for kids. Grass, remember I mentioned rice is very innocuous. Grass, in general, contains no alkaloids. So, if you eat dandelion, there's that white sap in dandelion. That's called an alkaloid, and it's bitter. And kids' livers can't really digest those kinds of things until they're about 2 years old. But grasses contain no alkaloids. So powdered grasses, like powdered barley grass, for example, or powdered wheatgrass, it mixed in with the mycelium mixed into a little fruit smoothie or something for a kid, great idea, because the grasses have this huge amount of alkaline minerals for building strong bones for a child.
Oh, that's great. As we're wrapping up here, David, I have to tell you, I read your book, The Sun Food Diet Success System. I forget what year it was, but I was traveling down the Australian coast and just read that thing. It was such an amazing book. I have to say that your philosophy of subtraction by addition is something that completely flipped my whole world upside down because, I was addicted to muffins, to chocolate chip cookies, all that stuff. And the whole subtraction by addition philosophy that you have is something that I've never heard anyone else talk about. And it is the most powerful thing that I have experienced in my life in order to give myself a long-term, David Jubb talks about being kind and gentle, soft and allowing. And that philosophy of yours allowed me to completely change to a 100% raw food diet over the course of a few years. But I didn't try to do it overnight, but it was that philosophy that you have, the subtraction by addition.
Awesome. I mean, that to me, it's like the adding strategy. That I've evolved that idea just to simplify it in front of audiences, where you just basically upgrade your operating system. whatever you're doing now, just upgrade and add in the good stuff, let it crowd out the other stuff, and it's an automatic upgrade. When you get on the best raw chocolate in the world, you don't even want the other stuff. You don't even want to think about it. It's out of the picture.
Wow.
You've driven it right out of the picture. So that's the idea. And what I like about it is it's in alignment with where we're going in the future, which is the idea of battling yourself or the diet wars or, cheating on your diet or whatever that was. It's like that's some kind of an old story that's really other than excellent, and it's ridiculous.
Right.
If you're going to battle yourself, you're going to lose every time. So we got to get into a thing that's like no battle, no fight, what's easy, what's flavorful, and the best thing to do is upgrade. Just take whatever you're doing right now and just improve it qualitatively, and step by step by step, you can get to where you're going.
Yeah, it's easy, because I remember I used to live across the street from Baskin-Robbins, and one of my things that you talked about on thebestdayever.com was to start adding in daily disciplines, no matter what they are, whether they're like success principles or dietary things. And at the time, my daily discipline was a green juice every day. I had to do a green juice. I could eat whatever else I wanted, and I would, but my discipline was the green juice. And I remember coming home, I was training jiu-jitsu at the time, and I was really hot and sweaty, and Baskin-Robbins was right there, and I told myself, okay, I can have a Baskin-Robbins, but I just have to go have my green juice first. And you know what happens to that, right?
You did the green juice, and suddenly you're like, you know what? Forget it. I don't want the ice cream.
Yeah, isn't that amazing how that works? Because like you said, there's not enough room in your stomach for everything, right?
But yeah, it's like how much can you eat in a day?
Yeah.
It's like how much are you going to eat in a day, and how much can you really put through your body each day? And eventually you just start realizing I might as well have the best stuff ever, because it tastes better. My friends over at Coconut Bliss, it's not a raw ice cream, but my God, they're doing a great job of getting people off the other ice cream. It's like a coconut-based ice cream. Then we've got friends, like in Pure Food and Wine in New York, where they have that Paco Jet machine, and they make raw coconut ice cream and raw cashew ice cream, pistachio ice cream. It's unbelievable. It's like this stuff is better than any Haagen-Dazs, Baskin-Robbins, anything we ever had. No side effects, and it's fun.
Yeah, wow. I saw a video recently of the, what's her name, Kombucha Mama or something like that. And they had a raw vanilla ice cream with some sort of root beer flavored kombucha. So they made a raw root beer float that was good for you.
That's like what it's come to, and that's so fun. It's like, how about, there's a big thing going on. People are totally sick of food. That's a big problem right now. And when you get back into this, man, you get excited about food again. You know that you can eat the food and not have to worry that you're going to gain 50 pounds, or, you don't have to say prayers after you eat the food. You say prayers before you eat, that kind of stuff.
Wow. So we got to wrap up here, but you have the Longevity Now conference coming up in May, I believe. Is that right?
That's right. We're going to be doing that May 2nd through 5th at the Orange County Hilton in Costa Mesa, California.
Okay, and I would encourage everyone to check out thebestdayever.com. And do you have any other, I know you're traveling, in a new city every week, but what are you working on now? You said you're working on rewriting that book, and...
Yeah, the Longevity Now program, rewriting that, that's going to be it probably won't be published for at least a year, but I'm working on it right now, because you know how it goes with publishers and editors and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And then I'm also working on just a number of different kind of innovative projects, video-wise.
Oh.
Kind of fun stuff to put, because it's easier to watch a video, so I'm doing a lot of video stuff.
Oh, nice. Okay, great. Well, would you mind, David, for holding just for a couple seconds while I close out the show?
Sure.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us on another edition of Extreme Health Radio. Hope you got some great tidbits out of that show. And I highly encourage you to follow David Wolfe on Facebook and follow him on Twitter. Check out thebestdayever.com and also all of his other projects and books he's got going. If you found value in this show, if you would click like on this show page, it's extremehealthradio.com/35. That would help us spread our show to more and more people on Facebook and around the world. That would be great. And also, thank you to Mike Adams of naturalnewsradio.com and his crew for having our show on his network. Appreciate that. And we have a store on our site with a lot of great products like the Bellicon Rebounder that David mentioned, as well as the Vitamix and other materials like that. So check out our store. We've got a lot of great stuff on there, and we are 100% listener supported. So if you want to just donate $1 or anything like that, we would greatly appreciate it. We want to keep everything free for you and be able to keep serving you with great content and great guests.